Chapter 9. Diverse Perspectives, Cultural, Generational, and Gender Views on Infidelity. 9.1 Cultural and Cross-Cultural Norms Impacting Infidelity. The concept of infidelity is dealt with differently across cultures, which is a testament to the diverse moral, legal, and social frameworks that govern behavior within societies. Various cultures determine what constitutes an act of infidelity, based on a myriad of factors, including religious beliefs, historical context, and prevailing social norms. This section aims to explore these cultural and cross-cultural norms and their implications on how acts of infidelity are perceived, judged, and dealt with in different societies. Within many Western cultures, monogamy is the expected practice in romantic relationships and marriage. Infidelity, in this context, often refers to a physical or emotional relationship with someone other than one's spouse or partner, engaged in secrecy and without the partner's consent. Western societies typically view infidelity as a serious betrayal that damages trust and can lead to the termination of relationships. The influence of Christianity and the moral guidelines it provides play a significant role in shaping the Western stigma associated with infidelity. In these cultures, infidelity is not only viewed as morally wrong, but is also often cited as a major cause of divorce and the breakdown of family units. Nonetheless, other societies might view the concept of infidelity differently. For instance, in some African and Middle Eastern cultures, polygamy is legally and socially sanctioned. In these contexts, the notion of having more than one spouse is not considered infidelity under the condition that the practice is conducted openly and with the knowledge and consent of all parties involved. Such practices are driven by different understandings of marital structures and familial obligations, often shaped by religious beliefs and economic considerations. The complexity of infidelity is further expanded when considering societies that integrate several cultural norms, such as those within South America and the Caribbean. Mixed indigenous, European, and African influences have resulted in unique social fabric where attitudes toward infidelity may reflect a combination of tolerance, secrecy, and a certain degree of social acceptability. Within these mixed cultures, infidelity might be viewed as undesirable yet somewhat expected behavior, particularly for men. This perspective can be observed in some Latin American nations, leading to a social double standard where infidelity is tacitly accepted for men, but heavily condemned for women. Asian cultures often hold different nuances regarding infidelity. In many parts of East Asia, for example, societal expectations are heavily influenced by Confucian principles that emphasize family harmony and collective well-being. Acts of infidelity may bring shame not only on the individuals involved, but also on their entire family networks. Because of the high value placed on family reputation and social favor, infidelity is often kept as a private matter, with a strong cultural incentive to preserve external appearances. This dynamic can lead to situations where infidelity is widely understood to occur, but seldom publicly acknowledged or discussed. In contrast to rigid social structures, certain indigenous societies may have more fluid approaches to relationships and fidelity. Within some indigenous communities, relationships are not always organized around the ownership-like principles that often characterize monogamy in the West. Instead, they may prioritize communal collaboration and shared parenting responsibilities, potentially leading to less stringent views on infidelity and more flexible romantic relationships. This cultural diversity significantly impacts the cross-cultural understanding of infidelity. With globalization facilitating movements of people and convergence of cultural traditions, more diverse views on infidelity are coming into contact with one another. This cultural exchange can sometimes lead to clashes, misunderstandings, and new syntheses of attitudes toward relationships. As individuals across the world interact and form bonds, they bring their cultural backgrounds into their expectations and interpretations of fidelity. The impact of generational perspectives on infidelity is another factor that heavily influences its perception. Younger generations, particularly in Western societies, are increasingly adopting more liberal views on sexuality and relationship structures. This generational shift is often attributed to broader social changes such as the sexual revolution, increased focus on individual rights, and the influence of internet culture, which has fostered access to a broader spectrum of viewpoints on relationships and infidelity. The evolving nature of relationships in younger cohorts can result in a redefinition of what constitutes infidelity, with some placing a greater emphasis on emotional exclusivity over physical exclusivity. Gender views on infidelity are inherently tied to cultural perceptions but carry their unique set of assumptions and biases. Historically, many societies have had vastly different expectations for men's and women's sexual behavior. In cultures where patriarchal values predominate, men often possess more liberties regarding sexual freedoms compared to women who are typically bound by stricter codes of conduct. These double standards reflect deeply ingrained gender roles that dictate not only the expectations of fidelity, but also the consequences of infidelity. It is also crucial to recognize the influence of legal frameworks on understanding and responding to infidelity. Laws related to adultery vary significantly worldwide, with some countries having criminalized the act, while others have decriminalized it to reflect a more modern interpretation of personal autonomy in relationships. The existence of such laws and their enforcement can shape public opinion on infidelity and influence behavior within societies. In countries with strict adultery laws, the fear of legal repercussions can act as a deterrent against infidelity, or at least against public acknowledgement of such behavior. Understanding the cultural, generational, and gender views on infidelity provides insight into human relationships' complex nature across different societies. With the intertwining of global cultures and the rapid pace of social change, these perspectives continue to evolve, creating new paradigms for interpreting the meaning and consequences of infidelity. This ongoing transformation presents challenges for individuals and societies as they navigate their expectations and experiences of loyalty and betrayal within the context of their cultural, generational, and gender identities. 9.2 Generational shifts in attitudes towards cheating. Generational shifts play a significant role in the changing landscape of infidelity and how it is perceived. Research demonstrates that attitudes towards cheating have evolved over the years, reflecting broader societal changes. This section will explore how different age groups perceive infidelity and the factors contributing to these perspectives. Older generations, typically those born before the 1960s, grew up in a period where traditional family values were highly upheld, and marriages were often perceived as lifelong commitments to be preserved at all costs. Infidelity, while not uncommon, was a taboo subject, shrouded in secrecy and associated with shame and moral failure. It's important to note that in those times, discussions on infidelity were often gendered, with a prevailing double standard that judged women more harshly for straying than men. Moreover, divorce was stigmatized, which often led couples to stay together despite infidelity, prioritizing family stability and public reputation. The baby boomer generation, born approximately between 1946 and 1964, began to challenge traditional norms, including those related to marriage and monogamy. The sexual revolution of the 1960s and 1970s played a key role in this shift, as did higher divorce rates and the growing acceptance of women's liberation. While this generation was more open to discussing extramarital relationships, they still largely viewed them as harmful to the sanctity of marriage. Some boomers who are religious may continue to follow the teachings of their faiths, which often condemn adultery, influencing their attitudes towards cheating. Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980, saw the emergence of more liberal attitudes towards multiple aspects of personal life, including sex, relationships, and marriage. Influenced by the rise of feminism and a greater emphasis on individual fulfillment, members of Generation X began to place stronger emphasis on personal satisfaction within relationships. This quest for personal happiness, paired with increasing divorce rates experienced by their own parents, led to a more accepting view of the end of a marriage when both parties were no longer satisfied. Millennials, born from 1981 to 1996, grew up with the rise of the Internet and a major expansion of access to information about sexuality and relationships. The prevalence of diverse relationship models they observed, such as open relationships and polyamory, has led some within this cohort to reconsider the traditional definition of cheating. Social media and dating apps have also changed the dynamics of relationships and fidelity. Although millennials tend to delay marriage and view the institution as less of a necessity, those who do commit often have strong views against infidelity, seeing it as a breach of trust and respect between partners. Generation Z, the most recent generation to reach adulthood, born from 1997 onwards, is coming of age in a time when traditional gender roles are being questioned and online interactions are a significant part of daily life. This generation is likely to place a high value on authenticity and transparency in relationships. They may also differentiate between physical infidelity and emotional infidelity, seeing virtual infidelity, such as online flirting or use of pornography, in different lights compared to prior generations. Technological advancements have altered the landscape of cheating across generations. The ease of connecting with others online, maintaining privacy with encrypted messaging, and accessing platforms specifically designed for discreet extramarital encounters have all contributed to a more complex understanding of what constitutes infidelity. While this accessibility may not necessarily increase the incidence of cheating, it does challenge older notions of infidelity that centered around physical or emotional affairs. Given these changes, the definition of cheating itself is evolving. Different generations are likely to disagree not only on the seriousness of infidelity, but also on what behaviors qualify as cheating. For older generations, physical acts outside of marriage might represent the ultimate betrayal, while younger generations might consider secrecy or emotional unfaithfulness as equally damaging to a relationship. The repercussions of infidelity also vary among generations. Previous generations may have been more likely to stay in a marriage after an affair, perhaps out of a sense of duty, for the sake of children, or due to financial dependence. However, younger generations are increasingly considering the option of leaving a relationship when trust is broken. They are more likely to perceive an affair as a symptom of underlying problems within the relationship, rather than an isolated incident. The role of sex education plays a part in how infidelity is understood and addressed across generations. Comprehensive sex education, which includes discussions about consent, communication, and emotional aspects of relationships, can impact how individuals navigate fidelity. Younger generations, with access to more progressive education, are better equipped to articulate their expectations around monogamy and negotiate the terms of their relationships. Gender perspectives interweave with generational attitudes, affecting how infidelity is perceived. While older generations might hold to more traditional gender roles, younger generations increasingly reject strict labels and roles, which affects how they view and handle infidelity. The fluidity of gender and the understanding of non-binary identities within younger generations may further shift the conversation around infidelity beyond the heteronormative paradigm that dominated past discussions. The intersection of cultural, generational, and gender views on infidelity reveals a complex tapestry that is continuously woven by the evolving values of society. What remains clear is that each generation's approach to relationships and fidelity reflects the historical, social, and technological milieu in which they live. Understanding these generational shifts is crucial not only for comprehending the current discourse on infidelity, but also for anticipating future trends in relationship dynamics. 9.3 Gender differences and similarities in infidelity. Infidelity is a complex phenomenon that has been present throughout human history, and its interpretation, along with the responses to it, differ widely across various facets such as culture, generation, and gender. Gender is a dimension that particularly influences views on infidelity, impacting how it is perceived, responded to, and disclosed. Traditionally, societal attitudes towards infidelity have been markedly gendered, with different sets of expectations and allowances for men and women. These differences have historical and biological explanations, often rooted in archaic norms and the evolutionary imperatives of each gender. Men have traditionally been judged less harshly for engaging in extramarital affairs, often justified by arguments about their innate need for variety and the evolutionary advantage of spreading one's genes. In contrast, infidelity in women has been viewed more negatively because it breaches the patriarchal value system that emphasized women's roles as caretakers and bearers of offspring, with faithfulness taking a pivotal role in ensuring paternal certainty. However, in contemporary societies, these traditional views are continually being challenged. A growing body of research is analyzing how the gender gap in attitudes towards infidelity is narrowing, driven by changes in societal norms, gender roles, and equitable legal structures. The accessibility of contraception and increasing gender equality in the workplace and other spheres have reduced the dependency of women on men, granting them more autonomy and opinion latitude in sexual matters. Men, on the other hand, often face increasing scrutiny in the wake of shifts towards greater expectations of emotional monogamy and involvement in family life. Although these changes are widespread, significant disparities remain in how men and women experience and deal with infidelity, both as perpetrators and victims. One of the key gender differences lies in the motivations for infidelity. Men are more likely to cite sexual desire as a primary driver for infidelity, whereas women often identify emotional dissatisfaction within their primary relationship as the main factor. For many men, infidelity does not necessarily entail an emotional disconnect from their partner, but can coexist with feelings of love and commitment. Women, however, are usually more prone to seek an emotional connection in extramarital relationships, and their affairs may signify deeper relationship dissatisfaction. The implications of these differences are critical for understanding how infidelity can affect the primary relationship and the efforts required for reconciliation, should couples decide to stay together. The consequences of infidelity also highlight noticeable gender contrasts. The social stigma attached to unfaithful women can be harsher and more enduring than for men, likely causing them to experience greater psychological distress. Women who commit infidelity may be more susceptible to negative judgment from friends and family, and even face more severe repercussions in divorce proceedings or custody battles. For men, the loss of respect and trust can manifest differently, potentially threatening their self-image and their perceived status as providers or protectors. Revelations of infidelity tend to trigger a range of emotions and responses that can differ markedly between genders. For instance, men may experience stronger reactions to sexual infidelity, expressing anger and jealousy more intensely. Women, conversely, may feel more threatened by emotional infidelity, worrying about the potential loss of emotional investment and support from their partner. Such differential reactions are tied not only to personal feelings, but also to societal conditioning that shapes expectations and permissible expressions of emotions for men and women. The impact of gender on the process of recovery and forgiveness following an affair is another area rich in differences. Women are generally believed to be more capable of forgiveness, especially when emotional neglect is addressed and restored. They often consider the broader context and are more likely to invest in relationship repair strategies, such as therapy. Men might find it more challenging to move past the perceived slight against their ego, and may demand more concrete signs of contrition or loyalty. They may also view the infidelity as a more straightforward betrayal without the need for context, making it harder to overcome and forgive. Moreover, the way infidelity is disclosed shows distinct gender patterns. Women are more likely to confess to infidelity, often prompted by feelings of guilt or a desire to restore emotional intimacy in the primary relationship. Men can be less forthcoming, sometimes only acknowledging infidelity when confronted or when denial is no longer plausible. This difference can affect the trajectory of the post-affair relationship, with full disclosure often being key to rebuilding trust. These insights into gender differences concerning infidelity are essential, but they should not overshadow the similarities that men and women share. Both genders feel pain, betrayal, and uncertainty following infidelity, and both may experience a profound sense of loss. Infidelity challenges the core foundation of a relationship, trust, and each gender must work through complex emotions to recover from such breaches. The journey to healing can be just as strenuous and demanding for both men and women, and there is no universal experience or one-size-fits-all resolution for couples facing infidelity. Finally, it is vital to recognize that gender is only one dimension in the complex web of issues surrounding infidelity. An intersectional approach that considers other factors such as age, culture, socioeconomic status, and sexual orientation can provide a more nuanced and complete understanding. Gender norms continue to evolve, and with them, so do views and responses to infidelity. What remains consistent is the need for open dialogue, empathy, and a willingness to understand the multifaceted nature of relationships and the humans within them. Infidelity represents a significant challenge for any relationship. Rising above gender stereotypes requires an honest appraisal of the underlying issues. Addressing these issues and working towards resolution demands not only recognizing the gendered nuances, but also moving beyond them to focus on the individuals involved and the unique dynamics of their relationship. As gender roles continue to morph in an increasingly egalitarian society, so too might the narrative around infidelity, suggesting the potential for more universal standards for understanding and addressing this deeply personal yet widely pervasive experience. 9.4 Infidelity Dynamics in LGBTQ+ Relationships. Infidelity in LGBTQ+ relationships often encompasses unique dynamics and challenges that may not be as prevalent in heterosexual relationships. Understanding these nuances is critical for grasping the complex nature of infidelity within these communities. One significant factor contributing to different experiences of infidelity in LGBTQ+ relationships is the struggle with societal acceptance. Despite progress in many parts of the world, LGBTQ+ individuals still contend with varying degrees of stigma, discrimination, and legal barriers. These external pressures can have profound impacts on relationship dynamics. For instance, when society at large fails to recognize or value same-sex relationships as legitimate, partners within these relationships may perceive a lack of societal support and often face a different set of expectations compared to their heterosexual counterparts. This can influence how individuals within LGBTQ+ relationships navigate commitments and conceptualize infidelity. Social networks within the LGBTQ+ community also play a crucial role in shaping attitudes toward infidelity. Communities often offer support and a shared understanding of the complexities involved in their relationships. However, these same networks can have their own implicit norms and expectations regarding relationships and monogamy. In some instances, there may be a greater acceptance of non-monogamy or alternative relationship structures within these communities, leading to varied definitions of what constitutes infidelity. These can range from strictly sexual encounters with others to forming emotional connections outside the primary relationship. As such, the lines demarcating infidelity may differ considerably from traditional heterosexual frameworks, and can even vary widely within the LGBTQ+ community itself. Understanding these distinctions is important in addressing infidelity without imposing heteronormative standards. Another layer of complexity arises from the internal dynamics of LGBTQ+ relationships. Just like any other relationships, those formed within LGBTQ+ communities are influenced by power imbalances, communication patterns, and personal history. These internal dynamics can either protect against or contribute to the likelihood of infidelity occurring. For instance, partners who have experienced prior victimization or prejudice may bring a heightened sensitivity to issues of trust and betrayal. Moreover, if communication about needs and boundaries is not clear, this can lead to misunderstandings and potentially to infidelity. It is therefore crucial for these discussions to acknowledge and be sensitive to the role of personal and collective histories in shaping relationships. Partners must navigate their dynamics sincerely, understanding that trust is built over time and can easily be eroded if not carefully maintained. Evolving technologies and social media also hold significant implications for infidelity in LGBTQ+ relationships. The Internet has been a fundamental resource in connecting LGBTQ+ individuals, offering a platform for networking, dating, and community building. However, digital spaces also represent new terrain for potential infidelity. Online environments can blur the lines between innocent interactions and more intimate emotional or sexual engagements. With easy access to dating apps and social platforms, the possibility of infidelity is heightened, as these mediums facilitate connections beyond the primary relationship. The increase in digital traces of infidelity can lead to new forms of surveillance and jealousy between partners, which requires diligent navigation and clear agreements on what is acceptable within the relationship. The intersectionality of LGBTQ+ individuals with various cultural, ethnic, religious, and economic backgrounds adds another dimension to understanding infidelity. LGBTQ+ persons come from diverse cultures that have their own views on infidelity, which complicates how infidelity is defined and dealt with. For example, a person who is both LGBTQ+ and from a culture that strictly adheres to monogamous relationships may face different expectations and pressures compared to someone whose cultural background is more accepting of non-monogamy. There can be an additional burden of reconciliation between one's cultural identity and sexual orientation, impacting how infidelity is viewed and addressed within the relationship. The relevance of open relationships and polyamory is also particularly salient in discussions about infidelity within LGBTQ+ relationships. Non-monogamy has often been more accepted and practiced openly within many LGBTQ+ communities. These non-traditional relationship structures challenge the very notion of infidelity by reframing boundaries and agreements between partners. While open or polyamorous relationships may offer a redesign of traditional relationship rules, they also come with their own unique complexities. It's essential to recognize that non-monogamy does not equate to a free-for-all. These relationships require their own strict communication, trust, and agreements to function healthily. Partners in these relationships may define infidelity not as engaging with others outside the relationship, but rather as lying, withholding information, or violating agreed-upon rules. Generational perspectives within the LGBTQ+ community can also affect how infidelity is perceived and experienced. Older generations who may have lived through periods of more intense stigmatization and fewer rights might approach infidelity differently from younger generations experiencing more acceptance and visibility. There might be a generational divide, with varying levels of adherence to traditional relationship structures impacting both the occurrence of infidelity and reactions to it. Understanding these generational differences is vital for a comprehensive discussion of infidelity in the context of LGBTQ+ relationships. Gender identity and its interplay with infidelity in LGBTQ+ relationships is yet another consideration. The experiences of transgender individuals, in particular, may differ significantly from those of cisgender individuals within the LGBTQ+ community. As societal acceptance of transgender individuals still lags behind, trans people may face additional layers of discrimination and isolation that can shape their relationships. Furthermore, non-binary and gender non-conforming individuals may also face unique challenges and understandings of infidelity that do not align with binary notions of gender and sexuality. Legal recognition is another critical aspect impacting infidelity in LGBTQ+ relationships. In regions where same-sex marriage and civil unions are not legally recognized, partners in LGBTQ+ relationships might not have the same legal recourse in the case of infidelity as their heterosexual counterparts do. This has implications for how infidelity is approached and processed within the relationship and in broader society. Legal recognition can confer a level of legitimacy and protection to a relationship that can affect how seriously breaches of trust are taken both by the partners themselves and by others. Where the legal system does not offer equal protection and recognition, individuals in LGBTQ+ relationships may be left to navigate the aftermath of infidelity without the support structures available to those in legally recognized marriages. Finally, it is essential to acknowledge the coping mechanisms employed by LGBTQ+ individuals when dealing with infidelity. Given the complex interplay of societal, community, and interpersonal factors, those within LGBTQ+ relationships may employ a range of strategies to manage the emotional and practical consequences of infidelity. This could include seeking support from within the LGBTQ+ community, attending counseling, setting up new boundaries within the relationship, or deciding to separate. The resilience and adaptability often required to navigate a world that may not fully accept their identities can provide LGBTQ+ individuals with a unique set of skills to manage infidelity. However, this should not detract from the pain and disruption infidelity can cause, and thus support systems need to be robust and sensitive to the particular challenges faced by LGBTQ+ individuals. Understanding infidelity within LGBTQ+ relationships requires a multifaceted approach that considers numerous interwoven factors. It is abundantly clear that the dynamics of infidelity within these relationships are shaped by a confluence of societal, community, interpersonal, legal, and technological factors. Recognizing these elements can help inform a sensitive and inclusive conversation about the issue of infidelity, ensuring that addressing it does not reinforce prejudicial norms, but instead respects the diversity and complexity of human relationships. 9.5 Influence of Religion and Spirituality on Infidelity. Religion and spirituality play substantial roles in shaping individual and collective attitudes toward infidelity. They often provide the moral and ethical framework within which people assess the acceptability of behaviors, including those related to fidelity in relationships. The influence of religion on infidelity can be direct, with explicit prescriptions and proscriptions about sexual behavior and marital fidelity, or indirect, by promoting values such as self-discipline, commitment, and the sanctity of marriage. Religious doctrines typically advocate for sexual exclusivity between married partners. This view underpins the expectation that marital vows are both sacred and binding. Violating such vows through infidelity is not merely seen as a breach of trust between individuals, but also as an offense against the divine or spiritual order that sanctifies the union. Spirituality, distinct from organized religion, also impacts perceptions of infidelity, although in a more personalized manner. While spirituality may not always be anchored in a specific set of rules or scriptures, it often emphasizes connection, integrity, and personal growth. People who identify as spiritual may perceive infidelity as a disruption to their inner peace and the harmonious balance they seek in life. Their spiritual beliefs can influence their understanding of fidelity to include emotional and psychological faithfulness, extending beyond the mere physical act of sexual exclusivity. Various religious traditions approach infidelity differently, and understanding these subtleties is important. In some religions, for example, infidelity may be considered one of the gravest sins and can result in severe social and religious consequences. Other religious contexts may offer more nuanced perspectives on infidelity, exploring the reasons behind the act and focusing on repentance and forgiveness as part of healing and restoration. Some faiths may emphasize reconciliation and the healing of relationships, while others may be more punitive in response to such transgressions. The role of religious leaders and communities cannot be overlooked when considering the influence of religion on infidelity. Religious leaders often serve as counselors and advisors who articulate and reinforce the expectations around marital fidelity. Furthermore, the community of fellow worshipers can offer a support network that reinforces these values through shared belief and communal reinforcement. When individuals are embedded in such supportive religious environments, The likelihood of adhering to the tenets against infidelity may increase due to both the desire for community acceptance and the internalization of religious teachings. Generational differences can also factor into the religious influence on infidelity. Older generations might have been brought up with stricter adherence to religious doctrines and may, therefore, take a more conservative stance on matters of marital fidelity. By contrast, younger generations who grow up in more liberal or secular contexts might perceive religious teachings on infidelity differently, often adopting more flexible interpretations or prioritizing personal happiness and fulfillment over doctrinal adherence. Gender considerations significantly color the religious perspectives on infidelity. In some cultures and religious traditions, infidelity is viewed and treated differently, depending on whether the unfaithful party is male or female. Men's infidelity might, in some cases, be tacitly tolerated or less severely judged, whereas women's infidelity might be met with much harsher social and religious condemnation. This disparity raises critical questions about gender equity and the interpretation of religious teachings in modern contexts. Legal systems in certain countries are influenced by the dominant religion's stance on infidelity. In these cases, the intersection of religious teaching and civil law can have concrete implications for people accused of infidelity. Penalties can range from fines and imprisonment to social ostracization. This underscores the powerful influence that religious attitudes toward infidelity can have beyond personal and communal spaces, extending into the public and legal domains. Technological advancements and globalization have introduced new dynamics in the religious discourse on infidelity. Increased exposure to different cultures and a plethora of information can challenge traditional religious perspectives. The Internet provides access to diverse viewpoints and the possibility of anonymous engagement in activities that may be considered adulterous, which can either weaken observance of religious injunctions or provoke new religious responses to maintain the importance of fidelity. Religion and spirituality's influence on infidelity is not static. It evolves with shifts in broader social, cultural, and religious landscapes. As societies become more secular and diverse religious beliefs interact, the once clearly defined religious positions on infidelity may be subject to reinterpretation, debate, and change. The balance between upholding religious tenets and adapting to contemporary moral understandings of relationship dynamics continues to shape the discourse on infidelity within religious and spiritual contexts. Finally, the potential for healing and forgiveness after acts of infidelity is an important aspect of religion and spirituality. Many religious frameworks offer pathways for atonement and reconciliation. The processes vary among different traditions, but often include confession, genuine repentance, seeking forgiveness, making amends, and committing to change. This aspect of religion and spirituality can be crucial for individuals and couples trying to overcome the aftermath of infidelity and rebuild their relationships. It underscores the dual role of religious and spiritual beliefs as both guardians against infidelity and as sources of repair and renewal following its occurrence. 9.6 Media's role in shaping perceptions of infidelity. The media has historically served as a powerful influence in shaping cultural norms and individual beliefs about various social issues, including infidelity. Television shows, movies, news reports, and literature offer a plethora of narratives that help to form public opinion on the topic. These narratives not only reflect, but can also influence societal attitudes and perceptions. In depicting infidelity, the media presents a variety of scenarios ranging from scandalous affairs to emotional betrayals, often dramatized for entertainment value. This can serve to both normalize and demonize the behavior, and the impact on public perception is profound. Popular television dramas and movies have long explored the theme of infidelity, often in a way that evokes strong emotional responses from the audience. By dramatizing the consequences of cheating, these forms of media can evoke feelings of betrayal, hurt, and outrage, or conversely, garnish it with a sense of thrill and excitement. The viewer is taken through complex storylines that frame infidelity as an inevitable result of flawed relationships or as a means of self-discovery for the characters. The subtle suggestion often is that infidelity, while damaging, is a common occurrence in romantic relationships. In talk shows and reality television, infidelity is often discussed openly, providing both a platform for confession and a forum for judgment. Participants in these shows discuss their experiences with infidelity, sometimes with remorse and other times with a defensive stance. These shows can serve as a reflection of the changing norms around fidelity. They often emphasize the need for honesty and communication in relationships, while acknowledging the difficulty of maintaining monogamous relationships. The real-life aspect of these programs can blur the line between entertainment and the harsh reality of the consequences of cheating. Social media has also become a central forum for the discussion of infidelity. Stories of betrayal spread quickly, and public opinion is formed and reshaped by the communal narrative that evolves online. Individuals share their personal experiences with infidelity, seeking support or advice from their networks. These stories impact the perception of infidelity, as they provide a more personal and direct narrative, which may resonate more strongly with some people than the dramatized versions seen on television or in movies. Literature, both fiction and nonfiction, provides a lens through which we can examine infidelity. Authors delve into the psychology behind infidelity, offering explanations and explorations of the motives and repercussions. In nonfiction, scholarly works and self-help books provide insights and guidance based on research and theory. These texts contribute to the understanding of infidelity by offering a more nuanced analysis of the causes and effects of cheating in relationships. In news media, reports on the extramarital affairs of public figures, from politicians to celebrities, often become prominent stories. The moral scrutiny exercised by journalists and commentators echoes the values of the society they represent. The portrayal of these figures as cautionary tales or as subjects of sensationalism creates a discourse on the acceptable boundaries of behavior in public and private life. The public's reaction to these scandals can range from outrage to a more resigned acceptance that this is a part of human nature. The discussion of infidelity in educational contexts, such as sex education classes or relationship workshops, typically takes on a more informative and preventative tone. The focus is often on understanding the reasons behind infidelity and offering tools for maintaining healthy relationships. While it is less sensational than other media portrayals, it still contributes to the shaping of perceptions by framing infidelity as a preventable problem that can be addressed with proper knowledge and skills. Marketing and advertising occasionally use references to infidelity to sell products or services by invoking themes of seduction and desire. These messages create a juxtaposition between the allure of the forbidden and the presumed stability of monogamy. The use of sexual imagery and innuendos suggests that straying from a relationship can be exciting, further complicating the public's perception of infidelity. Although not as explicitly discussed as in other forms of media, such advertisements subtly contribute to the normalization of infidelity by presenting it as a common aspect of human desire. Music also contributes greatly to the dialogue on infidelity, with countless songs telling stories of love, betrayal, and heartbreak. The lyrics often express raw emotions associated with being unfaithful or being betrayed, resonating deeply with listeners. Such songs might validate personal feelings and experiences, influencing how individuals perceive their own situations and the concept of infidelity overall. A significant consideration is the way media often portrays gender roles in the context of infidelity. Male infidelity is frequently depicted as driven by physical urges or as an escape from domestic monotony, whereas female infidelity is often characterized as an emotional departure stemming from neglect or the search for emotional fulfillment. These gender-specific tropes reinforce stereotypes and may influence how individuals understand and react to real-life incidents of infidelity. The enduring question is to what extent media influences behavior versus reflecting existing social norms. While it is clear that media has the ability to shape and sway public perception, it is also a mirror of societal values at a given time. As society evolves and views on relationships and fidelity change, the media's portrayal of infidelity transforms as well. The interplay between shifting cultural norms and media's depiction of those norms is complex and ongoing, continually influencing and reflecting the social fabric. Understanding the media's role in shaping perceptions of infidelity provides insight into how deeply entrenched these narratives are in the collective consciousness. The diverse messages and stories delivered across different mediums contribute to a multifaceted understanding of infidelity, which varies widely among individuals and cultures. While the media cannot be held solely responsible for how society views infidelity, its profound influence in crafting and disseminating these views is undeniable. As media continues to evolve with technology and changing social norms, so too will the narratives around infidelity and how they shape the collective perspective. 9.7 Societal Trends and Changing Attitudes. Infidelity, while often considered a personal and private matter, is invariably influenced by societal trends and changing attitudes. Over the past few decades, there has been a significant shift in how society perceives marital fidelity, relationships outside of marriage, and the sanctity of marriage itself. The influence of these shifts on infidelity is multifaceted and controversial. This section critically examines the correlation between societal trends, particularly in Western cultures, and changing attitudes towards infidelity. Social norms regarding relationships have evolved markedly since the mid-20th century. During the 1950s and 1960s, the traditional family structure was emphasized, often placing the sanctity of marriage and strict monogamy at the forefront of societal values. However, the later decades witnessed the rise of the sexual revolution and an increasing focus on individual freedoms. These cultural changes propagated more liberal attitudes towards sex outside of marriage, and concurrently perceptions of infidelity began to change. The barriers that once discouraged extramarital relationships became less formidable, as societal norms shifted towards greater acceptance of personal choice. The expansion of digital communication and social media has had a profound impact on infidelity. The internet has fundamentally changed how people interact, facilitating connections between individuals in different social circles, geographic locations, and even across the globe. Online environments have also created new forms of emotional and sexual expression, with implications for what constitutes infidelity. Online affairs, cybersex, and emotional connections via the internet add layers of complexity to the traditional definitions of infidelity. As a result, individuals and couples are often at odds with determining the boundaries of acceptable behavior in the digital age. Media representations play a significant role in shaping public perceptions of infidelity. Film, television, and literature frequently explore themes of infidelity, often sensationalizing or romanticizing extramarital relationships. These portrayals can shape societal attitudes, suggesting a normalization or trivialization of infidelity. Conversely, media can also stigmatize those involved in extramarital affairs, reinforcing the notion that such behavior is inherently destructive. The tension between these opposing depictions contributes to complex, sometimes contradictory societal views on the subject. Gender perspectives on infidelity have changed alongside broader feminist movements and discussions about gender equality. Traditional views often held women to stricter standards regarding fidelity, while men's extramarital transgressions were sometimes silently tolerated or even expected. As societal expectations of gender roles have evolved, so too have conceptions of what is acceptable for men and women in the context of fidelity. There is a growing understanding that the emotional and sexual desires and infidelity behaviors are not strictly confined by gender, challenging long-standing gendered stereotypes. Generational views on infidelity also exhibit considerable variation. Older generations, who may be more influenced by traditional norms and values, often hold different perceptions of infidelity compared to younger generations. For example, millennials and Generation Z tend to have more liberal attitudes toward non-traditional relationship structures, such as polyamory or open relationships, concepts that inherently redefine the notion of infidelity. These generational differences are important to consider, as they highlight the fluidity of societal norms surrounding relationships and fidelity. Cultural differences influence attitudes toward infidelity in significant but varied ways. What is deemed acceptable in one culture may be strictly prohibited in another. In some cultures, extramarital affairs are tacitly accepted, while in others they remain taboo. Even within cultures, there can be differing perspectives based on religious beliefs, socioeconomic status, or ethnic backgrounds. As societies become more multicultural, these diverse cultural attitudes intersect and influence each other, leading to a complex tapestry of beliefs about infidelity. Economic factors also play a role in changing attitudes toward infidelity. Financial independence and the ability to support oneself outside of a marital relationship can impact decisions about staying in a relationship following an infidelity. In societies where economic opportunities for women have increased, the decision to stay with a cheating partner is no longer strictly dictated by financial dependency. This shift has empowered individuals, particularly women, to make choices that prioritize personal fulfillment and happiness over traditional expectations of marriage. The legalization of same-sex marriage in many countries has contributed to an evolving understanding of infidelity. Same-sex couples, who historically have had to navigate relationship norms without the legal recognition of marriage, bring unique perspectives to discussions of infidelity. With the increased visibility and acceptance of diverse relationship structures, conversations about fidelity can no longer operate within a strictly heterosexual framework. Globalization has influenced how infidelity is viewed by exposing individuals to diverse cultural norms and practices. As people travel and connect with others around the world, they encounter differing ideas about relationships and fidelity. This exposure can challenge individuals to reconsider their own beliefs and potentially adopt more nuanced views of infidelity. It can also create friction within societies, as traditional values come into contact with global influences. Through all these societal changes, the concept of infidelity itself is continuously redefined. As attitudes evolve, so too does the language and framing of the discourse surrounding infidelity. These shifts in perspective highlight that infidelity is not a static concept, but one that reflects broader societal dynamics. It is essential to understand these trends in order to appreciate the complexities and nuances of infidelity in contemporary society. The changing landscape of attitudes towards infidelity presents challenges and opportunities for individuals, couples, and society at large. It demands a sensitive and nuanced approach to the topic, recognizing that each case of infidelity is influenced by an array of personal and societal factors. It is crucial that future discourse on infidelity acknowledges these varied influences, providing a comprehensive and empathetic understanding of why infidelity occurs and how it is perceived in our rapidly changing world. 9.8 Educational approaches to infidelity in different cultures. Education on the topic of infidelity varies widely across different cultures, underpinning the moral, social, and legal frameworks within which relationships are formed and maintained. In some cultures, education about fidelity and infidelity is embedded in the teachings and advice passed down through generations. These teachings are often encapsulated in religious doctrines, folklore, and social customs, which delineate the expected behavior within romantic relationships. The emphasis on the sanctity of marriage and the moral objections to infidelity can be traced in part to the pervasive religious and philosophical teachings that highlight fidelity as a virtue. The historical context of a culture significantly influences the current educational approaches to infidelity. In societies with a long history of polygamous relationships, for example, the concept of infidelity may be viewed through a different lens than in societies where monogamy has been the norm. Educational approaches in such cultures might focus more on the responsibilities and respect due to all parties within a polygamous relationship, rather than the exclusivity of emotional and sexual bonds common in monogamous teachings. It becomes important, therefore, to understand the historical roots of a culture to properly appreciate their contemporary views on and educational strategies about infidelity. Formal education systems in many cultures do not typically focus on the subject of infidelity directly, but the topic is often approached tangentially through the discussion of family values, health education, and civic responsibilities. Young individuals may receive guidance on the importance of trust, respect, and honesty within relationships. This education is not always explicit about infidelity, but is aimed at laying the foundation for creating strong, faithful partnerships. In many cases, these values are taught through scenarios and role-playing exercises tailored to the understanding of different age groups, which indirectly instill a sense of the negative implications of infidelity. Conversely, in some more liberal societies, educational approaches to infidelity include direct discussions concerning the psychological and social dimensions of relationships. Such discussions may encompass the nature of romantic and sexual relationships, consent, and the consequences of cheating. In these cultures, open conversations about dating, sex, and relationships are more common and may be included in school curricula or other forums for youth and adult education. The goal is often to encourage individuals to think critically about their personal values and the types of relationships that they want to pursue. Gender plays a significant role in both the understanding of and education about infidelity. Traditional roles can impact the dialogue around cheating, with some cultures exhibiting double standards that are more permissive or condemnatory depending on the gender of the individual who engages in infidelity. For instance, in some cultures, infidelity by men may be socially accepted or even expected, whereas infidelity by women is harshly judged and penalized. Education in these settings may either reinforce these gender norms or challenge them, depending on the objectives of educators and changing social attitudes. In the context of generational views, it is noticeable that younger generations often have differing perceptions of infidelity compared to older generations. This generational shift can be associated with changing societal values, increased communication through technology, and exposure to a variety of cultural narratives via global media. Education intended for younger generations may need to address these changing perceptions and provide guidance on how to navigate relationships in a world where traditional social structures and expectations are in flux. The cross-cultural exchange of ideas through globalization has also influenced educational approaches to infidelity. Exposure to different cultural norms and values has challenged traditional doctrines and often stimulates dialogue about what constitutes a relationship and when an act is considered unfaithful. This exchange can lead to a reevaluation of cultural norms and the development of hybrid educational practices that incorporate both traditional and modern views on relationships and infidelity. Technology has also impacted the landscape of infidelity and its educational discourse. With the rise of social media and dating apps, the definition of emotional or online infidelity has become a topic of discussion and analysis within educational circles. There is a growing need to understand the boundaries of interpersonal communication and intimacy over digital platforms and how these interactions relate to traditional notions of infidelity. Consequently, the educational material is constantly adapting to include guidance on these new paradigms. In areas where the prevalence of infidelity has led to significant public health concerns, such as the spread of sexually transmitted infections, STIs, education often shifts to prioritize safe sex practices and the health implications of multiple sexual partners. Health education campaigns sometimes arise as reactionary measures to infidelity, aiming to mitigate its negative effects on the community. These campaigns can serve a dual purpose of educating individuals about the risks associated with infidelity and promoting fidelity through awareness of its potential hazards. In more collectivist cultures, where the actions of individuals reflect upon the family and community, education about infidelity is often framed around the concept of honor. Preserving family honor can be of paramount importance, and education about fidelity becomes a communal concern. In these environments, the approach to educating about infidelity may be more prescriptive, emphasizing the shame and dishonor brought upon families by acts of infidelity. This can have a profound impact on the deterrent measures taken within a community and shapes the behavior of individuals who learn to associate such acts with high social and personal costs. Overall, educational approaches to infidelity in different cultures reflect the values and priorities of those societies. As globalization continues to influence cultural norms, these educational approaches evolve, encompassing a broad spectrum of beliefs and practices. Addressing infidelity through education requires an understanding of the complex interplay between historical context, religion, gender roles, generational shifts, technological advancements, public health, and social constructs like honor and shame. It is this complexity that highlights the need for customized and nuanced educational strategies when tackling the multifaceted issue of infidelity within different cultural contexts. 9.9 Global Perspectives on Infidelity and Relationships. Infidelity is a complex issue with widespread implications that vary significantly across different cultures and societies. Around the world, the understanding of monogamy, marriage, and the moral weight of infidelity can be vastly different, shaped by historical, cultural, religious, and social factors. In some societies, there is a deeply ingrained expectation that marriage and monogamous relationships are sacrosanct, and that infidelity is a grave moral failing. In other communities, there is a more pragmatic view of infidelity, perhaps influenced by socioeconomic factors or traditional practices that allow for polygamous relationships or extramarital affairs under certain conditions. Cultural perceptions of infidelity are often rooted in the broader values and mores of the society. In more collectivistic cultures, where family and group cohesion are emphasized over individual desires, infidelity might be looked upon as an act that threatens not only the immediate family unit, but also the wider community. In such environments, strong social stigma and severe repercussions for infidelity can act as deterrents. Conversely, in more individualistic cultures where personal fulfillment and happiness are given precedence, the response to infidelity may be seen more in terms of personal betrayal rather than a social or moral dilemma. Religion plays a prominent role in shaping attitudes toward infidelity in many parts of the world. The major world religions typically espouse fidelity within marriage and often include explicit prohibitions against extramarital relationships. However, the interpretation of religious scripture and the enforcement of its morality related to infidelity vary. For some, religious dictates are central to their understanding of fidelity and carry significant weight in both personal behavior and community attitudes, while for others, religion may influence their moral compass but does not necessarily dictate their actions or provide their primary framework for understanding infidelity. Generational shifts also affect global perspectives on relationships and infidelity. Older generations might hold to traditional values more rigidly, valuing marital stability over personal satisfaction and viewing divorce or infidelity as shameful. Younger generations are often influenced by global communication and media, which can propagate more liberal views on relationships, personal autonomy, and sexual freedom. These generational divides can lead to differing opinions within the same cultural context, creating additional complexity in understanding the contemporary landscape of infidelity around the world. The view of gender roles within a society intersects significantly with its perspectives on infidelity. In some cultures, there is a double standard where infidelity by men is tacitly accepted, or at least less severely condemned, compared to infidelity by women. This double standard often arises from traditional patriarchal norms that perceive men as having uncontrollable sexual urges, or from the societal view of women as upholders of family honor. In contrast, societies that promote gender equality are more likely to view infidelity as an equal opportunity transgression, emphasizing the betrayal of trust over gender-specific interpretations. The consequences of infidelity can vary drastically depending on the society's legal system and its foundational principles. In some countries, laws reflect the moral condemnation of infidelity, potentially criminalizing such acts and imposing legal penalties on adulterers. In other countries, while infidelity may still be frowned upon, it is handled as a private matter, leaving any consequences to be determined by the individuals involved without legal interference. Legal perspectives on infidelity may shape societal reactions and can influence individual choices due to fear of punishment or social ostracism. The psychological impact of infidelity on relationships is complex and can be affected by cultural expectations. In societies where monogamy is the expected norm, the psychological repercussions may include betrayal trauma, loss of trust, and emotional pain that can be debilitating for those involved. In cultures with different expectations about relationships, responses to infidelity might be more varied, and the emotional impact may be mitigated by different societal norms or personal expectations regarding monogamy and fidelity. Economic factors can influence attitudes toward infidelity. In some societies, economic dependency may trap individuals in unhappy marriages, leading to extramarital affairs as a form of escape or self-expression. In other cases, economic prosperity and independence can provide more opportunities for discreet encounters, while also offering the financial means to exit a marriage or relationship if infidelity is discovered. Economic disparities between genders within a society can also shape the responses to infidelity, as economic power or lack thereof can affect one's ability to challenge or endure infidelity. Technology has a growing influence on relationships and infidelity. The digital age has introduced new platforms for individuals to connect with others outside their primary relationships. This increased connectivity transcends geographic borders and can promote cross-cultural exchanges that challenge traditional views on relationships. However, the digital realm also creates new contexts for emotional infidelity, the boundaries of which may be less clear-cut and more contentious within different cultural frameworks. Education and awareness about relationships and sexuality play a pivotal role in shaping perspectives on infidelity globally. Societies with comprehensive sex education programs and open discussions about sexuality and relationships may have more nuanced understandings of the reasons behind infidelity and be better equipped to handle its consequences. At the same time, these societies may also recognize the importance of establishing clear communication and boundaries in relationships, potentially reducing occurrences of infidelity due to lack of understanding or mismatched expectations. In summing up the global perspectives on infidelity, it is clear that no single narrative can encompass the diversity of views that exist. Every society brings to the table a unique combination of historical, cultural, religious, economic, and legal factors that influence its outlook on relationships and infidelity. It is important to recognize these differences while also acknowledging the common thread of human emotions and the universal need for respect and trust in relationships. The investigation into infidelity and its place within global perspectives highlights the vast tapestry of human social constructs and the dynamic interplay between personal values and societal norms. 9.10 Future Global Shifts in Perceptions of Infidelity. Infidelity has been a topic of moral and social debate across cultures and generations. In the last several decades, we have witnessed significant shifts in how various societies interpret and respond to infidelity. Looking ahead, we can anticipate further changes driven by globalization, advances in technology, and evolving cultural dynamics. These changes will likely continue to shape our global perspectives on infidelity in profound ways. One of the primary drivers of change will be the ongoing expansion of the Internet and social media. These platforms have already significantly impacted interpersonal relationships, by providing more opportunities for emotional and romantic connections outside of committed partnerships. As online communities grow and virtual interactions become more immersive with technologies like augmented and virtual reality, the boundaries of fidelity could further blur. This will pose new challenges in defining what constitutes infidelity and maintaining trust in relationships. Globalization is also leading to increased cultural exchange and integration. With individuals from various backgrounds interacting more frequently, different beliefs and attitudes toward infidelity will inevitably clash and coalesce. This creates a space for people to re-examine their views on marital and relational fidelity. A global dialogue on infidelity could emerge, leading to a more nuanced conversation that accommodates diverse perspectives and perhaps even yields a more comprehensive worldwide understanding of the issue. Economic factors play a substantial role in shaping attitudes toward infidelity. Economic development, women's increasing participation in the workforce, and shifting power dynamics within relationships contribute to changing perceptions. Financial independence for men and women changes the stakes of extramarital affairs. As gender roles continue to evolve, the consequences and considerations of infidelity for all genders may also shift, with different implications for financial support, childcare, and personal autonomy. The influence of youth culture cannot be overstated. Younger generations growing up in a digital age with different social norms are likely to develop distinct attitudes toward infidelity. These attitudes are informed by exposure to diverse relationships models, from monogamy to polyamory, that are debated and discussed with unprecedented openness. Future trends in infidelity will undoubtedly reflect the generational shift in ideology that is more accepting of alternative relationship structures. As society becomes more secular and religious adherence declines in some parts of the world, moral and ethical perspectives on infidelity may shift to reflect a more pragmatic view. This could mean that the reasons for fidelity may focus less on religious doctrine and more on personal values and the quality of the relationship itself. In regions where religion still plays a significant role, interpretations of religious texts dealing with infidelity may undergo re-examination to align with evolving cultural contexts. Another significant topic is mental health awareness. As understanding and openness about mental health issues progress, there might be more discussion about the psychological factors contributing to infidelity. This can bring about a shift in empathy towards those who are unfaithful due to compulsion or other mental health struggles, changing the straightforward condemnation that is often associated with adulterous behaviors. Likewise, the complexity of sexuality and gender identity will play a role in future perceptions of infidelity. Societal recognition of a spectrum of sexual orientations and gender identities affects how relationships are defined and what is considered betrayal. New relationship dynamics may emerge, requiring fresh guidelines and an updated understanding of commitment that resonates with everyone, regardless of gender or sexuality. Advancements in law and public policy will play a pivotal role as well, as they reflect and reinforce societal norms. Legal frameworks around marriage, divorce, and civil unions may evolve to address the changing landscape of relationships. This could result in new definitions of marital rights and responsibilities that more accurately reflect contemporary views on infidelity. Migration patterns due to political and environmental factors are bringing disparate cultures into closer contact and sometimes conflict. As cultures intermingle and influence one another, individual beliefs about infidelity may be challenged and reshaped. This is particularly poignant in communities where traditional views profoundly differ from the more progressive or liberal attitudes brought by newcomers. Considering these numerous influences that affect global perspectives on infidelity, it is clear that our understanding of infidelity is not static but ever-evolving. These shifts will continue to be informed by technological innovation, cultural exchange, and generational turnover. These global shifts will require individuals and couples to continually reassess their approach to fidelity and navigate a complex landscape of relationships with fresh perspectives. While it's impossible to predict exactly what the coming decades will hold, it is certain that the question of infidelity will remain pertinent, complex, and contested. As long as romantic relationships form a central part of the human experience, how we view, manage, and recover from breaches of trust will continue to evolve. By examining these potential future global shifts, we are better positioned to understand infidelity in its current context and prepare for the challenges and transformations that lie ahead.